There is a certain problem with personal development and striving for some ideals. And what really keeps you from reaching these ideals is inherent in the process itself and in the quality of ideals. And if you don't understand this, it will cause frustration in the long run. And therefore, I think it's worthwhile to mention this, and so that you can have your ideals, that you can do personal development and strive for improvement while being aware of the dynamic behind it. And because there are certain aspects that if you are not aware of them, they might certainly seem as if you are a failure, or that this whole personal development isn't really working. And so when we have some ideals in mind, or we set some goals, we want to improve our habits, then it's easy to see how other people present themselves, how other people talk about what they are doing, and then have a very idealistic idea in our mind that we want to strive towards. And then we constantly compare what we are doing, our present state of being, towards to these ideals, and we might always, really always, find ourselves lacking in some area. And in order to not feel frustration from that, we have to understand that these ideals are never meant to be reached. It's really their purpose. It's always their purpose to be to give us direction. They are not some end point of our journey that finally has to be reached. And so this goes very deep into our present experience, where we always feel this longing for, one day we hopefully achieve this one thing, and then we will be happy, or we will allow ourselves to be happy and feel some happiness. This will never be the case. We have to accept that this process of evolving and developing is an ever-changing and ever-evolving process itself. So striving for ideals will certainly change, and you will have, even though you might not be aware of it, they have always changed throughout your life. If you think back of the time when you were in school, maybe your highest priority was to finish school and get good grades, and you think, once I'm finished with school, everything will be so good and I will finally allow myself to be happy. And then you were maybe happy for 1 or 2 weeks afterwards. And this is a very common theme, and we know that intuitively, but we also resist accepting that, because the full acceptance of this we actually fear that we could fully accept this. But true strength and true development can only come from this place where you are fully content with what is, and you feel unconditional love with every present moment in every situation. And what does that mean, unconditional love for everything? That's actually something we deep down, our ego fears, because that would mean the destruction of a large part of our ego structure. And because one of the things we define ourselves by is what we believe is good and what we believe is bad. And so just incorporating all of that into our ego structure is very threatening to it. But it will be the only place from which we can authentically develop and choose to go in a certain direction without feeling frustration by not achieving any ideals. And so we should embrace that personal development itself is an evolving process. So it's a process of development which develops itself. So it's never some endpoint which you can reach. And that might sound counterintuitive, but really in the acceptance of this process of always growing, always learning, and always developing, you pull this thought that somewhere in the future you can finally let go of it all and accept it, and accept yourself, how you are in that present moment when you have finally achieved your ideals. By pulling that into the present moment right now and seeing that this whole thing with all your ideals and with everything you strive for is already kind of part of yourself and is part of this process which develops through the present moment. This will pull really happiness, when you want to define it in that way, into this present moment from which you can still have this ambition to develop and strive for something. Another big reason why to do that is to find out that underlying all of this is a misunderstanding of meaning. It's the misunderstanding that you yourself have some kind of inherent meaning. Usually we think that we have to fulfill ourselves. We have to fulfill our mission in life, and therefore from that we derive value and meaning and some kind of satisfaction. But this will not be the case, because we have fundamentally confused two different levels of existence. While we, our true self, is on the level of just pure being, where there is no attributes to it, where we are not having this quality of meaning or even meaninglessness, where there is no such explanation even necessary. When we exist on that level, but we confuse this, or we attach our feeling of being worth something to meaning, which is actually only possible in the realm of concepts, then we have really confused something here. And to make this more clear, I want to give you an example. Take any object, for in this example maybe just an apple. If you think about the meaning of an apple, then if you look at that object and you experience it for what it is, just for its pure being, then it has no meaning. So in its essence, in its beingness, it's free of any meaning or any meaninglessness or really any attributes other than what it is. And to understand this, that being and meaning is different, you can now see, if you think about when does the apple has meaning, in what circumstances could you say the apple has any meaning? Then you see it only has meaning as a concept in relation to some other concept. When you take the apple and relate it to the tree, for example. When you relate it to the tree, you could say the apple has a meaning because it becomes it has the purpose of reproducing. It has the purpose of keeping the tree alive over its own single lifetime, so to speak, of passing on its genes. So that would be a meaning for the apple in the realm of concepts, or another one would be as food for humans. Then it has meaning because it keeps you alive. It has some positive meaning. And so everything has really these two levels of existence, and you have to see that everything you develop and everything you strive for with all your ideals and really your meaning is on the level of concept, and it should never be confused for your essence of just being. That would be as silly as to ask the apple, what is your meaning? As when it is just being. And yeah, I think that's really some food for thought. I think it's interesting to, or not really interesting, it's very fundamental to personal development to not cling to any outcomes, to not be dependent and for your happiness to be dependent on any achievements of these ideals you have in mind. And yeah, for now, that's that. Thank you for watching this video and see you in the next one. Goodbye.